Howdy folks, in this particular lecture I'm going to show you something that is classed as kind of advanced stuff in Linux, and this is what we call SFTP server implementation. So we gonna install SFTP, which is a Secure File Transmission Program configured, and of course this is file server. Okay, so you can network attached storage devices, a network attached storage file server. Okay, so this is something, the reason I mentioned this is advanced because you have to have certain skills in Linux, if not in advanced skill, at least in a semi-advanced skill set to understand the Linux. And we're going to do it in Red Hat family, so we're going to do it in AlmaLinux. And it's going to take some time to actually get the hang of how actually these things work. Okay, so as I go along and give you the lecture, you will be able to appreciate it. So what's the purpose of doing that? The purpose is very simple. So if you want to share files, any files, okay, and you want to do it in a secured fashion, that is basically encrypted algorithms, what we call it secure shell or SSH. Okay, so under open SSH AES algorithm. So what we are trying to do here is basically sharing our files with clients, any clients across the globe. Okay, it could be a lawyer, it could be your lecturers, it could be university professors, it could be anybody you know that you want to share with, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, whoever. Okay, you want to share certain files. Those files may be confidential files, maybe files that you don't want to share with anybody who can actually hack a machine, so whatever. So that's why this network storage is very secured. And what I meant by secured is basically there's no way anyone can actually access those files or hack those files through this secured file transmission protocol, what we call SFTP. And this is best done in Linux and Unix systems. Okay, so that way because you are actually well protected by this operating system itself. I would not advise you to do that in machines like Windows Server, or I would not suggest you to do anything under Mac PC like Apple Macintosh either, although it is a lot more secure in Apple Macintosh, which is basically Unix family, as opposed to doing it in Windows. So this is what we're going to do in Red Hat family. So what is Red Hat? Red Hat is enterprise Linux. Okay, so and this is actually bought by IBM several years back with over $3 billion or something. This is a company that provide the operating system itself, which is a Linux systems. Okay, and this is comes with all the enterprise nuts and bolts. Okay, so it comes with all the bells and whistles and all the enterprise web applications, all the enterprise SQL servers pretty much run in Red Hat level. Okay, Red Hat Enterprise Linux. So you have a lot of different fork in Red Hat, and we're going to utilize what we call AlmaLinux in this particular tutorial. Okay, I will make another lectures on Red Hat. When I said Red Hat family, you have Red Hat Enterprise Linux, you have AlmaLinux, you have RHEL Linux, you have Miracle Linux, which is pretty cool from Japan. You have Orion Lime Linux, and you also have what we call Oracle Linux, which is very, very popular as well. So they all are Red Hat family. And then you have Debian family. So under Debian, you have Debian 13, Debian 12. Those are pretty cool. And they are also enterprise driven, but they are not commercially enterprised. Okay, so they all are Linux servers. Okay, let's jump right in. So this is a Debian 13 server. Okay, so from here I'm utilizing Proxmox virtual environment to make or virtualize these type 1 hypervisor in Proxmox to mimic Red Hat, AlmaLinux, and so on. So I got a lot of servers running, and this is something that you'll be doing if you're working as sysadmin in a virtual environment, for instance, deploying operating systems in a virtual environment. So let's jump right in and take a look into what we can do. So this is my Proxmox virtual environment. As you can see, I'm already fired up AlmaLinux, and I'm just gonna enhance the screen so that you can see a lot better in here. So this is AlmaLinux, pretty cool stuff. And this is enterprise driven. It doesn't have to pay for it. You don't have to have subscriptions with like Red Hat, and it's pretty cool. Okay, and a lot of companies utilize it. A lot of web applications are running in AlmaLinux. Okay, so from here, our purpose is to establish a SFTP server where you're gonna go into Google and search for all this information. You may find it, but it's not really kind of in a complete manner. So it is basically kind of dispersed and scattered around everywhere in Google, and it's difficult for certain people to find out the SFTP server under Red Hat families. There's a lot of information with Debian and SFTP server establishment configurations in Debian, which is very popular. Okay, but you find difficult in terms of getting SFTP server running into Red Hat families. That's why this lecture is critically important for people who are more inclined to utilize Red Hat families. Okay, so this lecture is not for people who are actually in Debian, although you can find a lot of informations which you'll be able to utilize in the Debian server as well from this lecture. Okay, so this is AlmaLinux. It is a NOM 3, so it comes with all NOM desktop environments. So you have Red Hat, Alma, Rocky Linux, you know, Miracle Linux, Oracle Linux. They're all actually under NOM desktop. They don't have many desktop environment which you can have in Debian. For example, Debian has Cinnamon Desktop, KDE, and so on, but it doesn't have that. So you have to understand that desktop environment is really tertiary objective, because these servers run as like a headless servers in a shell environment. So you obviously only have a shell server rather than have a desktop. So that's why they don't really care much about putting out a lot of desktop environment when you need to install the Red Hat family based platforms. Okay, like this one is AlmaLinux. So from here, so the first thing I am going to do is basically I'm going to go into activities right here, and you have to get used to with it, because if you're new to Red Hat families, you'll have to get used to with this desktop environment, which is kind of awkward, but you really find it very powerful in terms of the whole platform, you know, the whole server. So anyway, so from here, so the first thing I'm going to do is basically I'm going to introduce you to the desktop environment a little bit. So in here you can see, you know, it's very minimal, because most of the things you're going to do in shell server. So we're going to go and jump into shell in a minute. So this is what we got here, and we got file manager in here. So for example, you've got a file manager, a very basic file manager. It's not Nemo or anything. And under in here, I have the downloads directory. So if you click that, you know, and this file, I need to open this file. So maybe just keep that file open for now. And I'm going to open it with Nemo, and Nano desktop or text editor. Open with text editor. So we're going to open it in text editor. Okay, so we're going to keep that file open. We need this script because I don't want to type all this, because it will take some time, and you know, I don't want to waste your time me typing all this. So that's why I'm going to copy and paste that thing, and this is going to come into SSHD configuration file that we will look into a little later. So I'm going to keep that file open for now. Okay, and from here, as you can see, you cannot minimize the screen like you can do in Cinnamon Desktop environment or X11 Cinnamon Desktop environment. So you'll have to just go into activities again, and you see this is created a different box in here. Okay, and that's fine. This is the only awkwardness of non-desktop environment. Okay, so I thought that I was just going to show you that. So from here, so if we have established that, and for example in videos, you can see there is 3 videos in here. So our purpose is basically these 3 videos. We're gonna put it out into our SFTP server, so that at the end of the day, if we are successful establishing SFTP server, we can actually download these into a different server. So I'm going to run it from, for example, BSD or free BSD server, and then I'll actually download these from my SFTP in AlmaLinux to my free BSD. Okay, and also we're going to check that this is actually get uploaded into our SFTP. So at the moment, it's not been uploaded just in the video directory. So when we establish a SFTP server, we're going to issue a command to actually upload these into our upload directories, into our SFTP server, into our AlmaLinux. Okay. So we're going to do all that. So I thought I'm just going to quickly introduce you with this GUI file manager interface. So you don't have any options of minimizing, so don't even think about that. So click activities right here. So we're going to go to the command prompt right here and start doing some work. Okay, so we are in the command prompt. This is where you're going to spending 95% of your time. If you become a software developer, Java full stack web application developer, sysadmin, Red Hat sysadministrator, and so on, Linux sysadministrators or BSD system administrators, or JavaScript web application developers, or PostgreSQL or MySQL database administrators, and so on. So you'll be spending a lot of time in command line. So this is important. This is where every fun begins. Okay, so from here, as you can see, I'm going to type up some basic commands in here. So if I type who am I, it kind of tells me my name is Dude. Okay, so this is my username, and if I type host name, it kind of tells me this is the host name, gooncat.com. Okay, this is my host name of this particular server. Okay, so if I type, this is important, host name -i, and this kind of gives me the local IP address. Okay, and that's really important for you to know, because this is the one that we need to plug in to actually access SFTP server in a local area network server. But if we do curl ifconfig, .me, then it gives me my external IP address, which is basically a network IP address. Okay, and this is a dynamic IP address because it changes based on what network you are in. Your ISP or Internet Service Provider changes these addresses. So if you want to port forward, because SSH actually listen to port 22. So if you have to port forward it to your ISP network, you have to remap the port, which I would definitely suggest you to do, so that it remains secure. So if you're port 22, you can remap to 2040 or 6996, 6969, whatever numbers you like. Okay, the reason behind it is the port mapping is important because that makes it extra secure in terms of outside of your local area network. Okay, to access it from outside of anywhere in the world. Okay, so we're not going to get into that because this lecture has limited timeline, and in order for you to do that, it will take you some time to understand how network works. Okay, so I don't want to get into that. So this lecture is going to focus on local area network. So this is the IP address. So I'm just going to hovering my mouse right there, 192.168.1.171. That's the IP address we're going to plug in for local area network to actually test our SFTP server. Okay, so having said all that, so now we need to see that our SSH, which is basically OpenSSH, is actually installed and running. So there's a command to figure out that SSH is actually there and SSH version is there. So it should be SSH dash minus V, and then you type, it says OpenSSH 8.7 is actually installed. So that number shows that it's installed. And you can also do what we call systemctl, okay, and then status SSHD. Okay, so this is all comes under secure shell, and hit enter and it will tell you it's active and it's running. Okay, and the reason we need it because if you want to connect to any different servers, you can do that from here as well. So for example, if I want to connect to Debian 13 server, Debian 12 server, I can do that. So for example, if I do SSH yuki, which is the Debian 12 username, and then I plug in the number of that particular server under my local area network 190.168.1.247 and hit enter. You can ask you the password, and I'm going to put out the password right here and press enter. So now I'm in different machine altogether. How I know it? CAT-HC, and if you do Debian dash version, and it tells you it's a Debian 12.13 version. And if you also do NeoFetch, which is basically a software package which is deprecated now, you can sell the Debian GNU Linux, you are in a different server altogether. So this is the beauty of SSH, and it's secured, and it's secure both in LAN and both in WAN, which is wide area network, which is internet. Okay, so that we're not going to do that because that we will have to do it in an internet service provider port mapping change, and also you cannot actually test it because you'll have to have certain things like your Tor browser running so that you can actually look at from the Tor, because you cannot actually sit in your own tree and cut your own branches, so then you will fall. So you cannot sit in your ISP and try to test outside of your ISP. Okay, so that's why we cannot able to do that. So from here I'm going to exit, okay, and then I'm going to clear the screen from here, and then now I'm talking a lot of things that is actually prerequisite before we actually move into SFTP. So I don't want to go into too much details at this point about SFTP because that can intimidate people. So that's why I'm giving you some kind of a warm-up exercises, warm up your machines, and let's do things in a slow or fashionable manner. Okay, so for SFTP, so we need to go into our root user or super user. Okay, otherwise it's gonna you'll not be able to do anything. Okay, so we're gonna do su minus l. Okay, and it's gonna ask me the root password, and then I'm in root now. Okay, so if I do pwd, it tells you I'm in the root directory, and we're gonna change that to cd root. Okay, and then we are in the root. So if you do pwd now, we are in the root. So that's the way Linux file structure start from root. So if you do ls-l now, you see all the Linux system file. Okay, so from here, if I do df-h, you can actually type who am I, and it's gonna tell you your root. So you are the super user, you can do everything with your machine. So that's why you need to have certain skills in Linux, otherwise you can actually wipe out all these files and your system is totally screwed up, and you don't want to do that. So you need to have certain Linux skills. Okay, so from here I'm going to clear the screen, and I'm going to do df-h, and this is critically important because this will pivot everything that you're going to do with SFTP. You're going to make a strategize and plan based off this output. Okay, so from here you can see one or two things, that the AlmaLinux is actually a Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Actually you can do CAT-HC in here, so let me just quickly do that. If I do Red Hat release, I'm going to test it because I told you it's the Red Hat family. So it's 9.7, which is Red Hat 9.7. Its nickname is changed because AlmaLinux is called Moss Jungle Cat. I love it. Okay, and Red Hat 9.7 has a different code name. Okay, I forgot the name of it. Anyway, I think it's called Plow or something, which is kind of weird name. But anyway, Moss Jungle Cat. Okay, so that's Red Hat 9.7, which is basically, you have seen it that I've typed Red Hat release and it gives you all the information. Okay, so this is actually Red Hat. So from here, so I want to make a strategy. Like I said, you have to strategize before you actually go on doing SFTP. And a lot of lectures will not show you that. So from here, for example, you're working as sysadmin to a company, and they say, your boss comes in and say that I want to establish a SFTP server, small SFTP server, where I'm going to put out some files, because those files cannot go through email attachment, and I don't feel email is the right way of securely do it. So we're going to do a SFTP server. Can you establish a SFTP server no more than 40 gigabyte, so that I can put out some file there, and my clients can look into those files and download those files, and they can upload those files into that particular storage. Okay, but here is the problem. The problem is that I have a root directory which has roughly 37 gigs. So I can tell to my manager that I can do it for you anything under 37 gig, because I do not have any more spaces, okay, in this particular server. But our home directory also has a very limited space, and it has only 714 megabytes left with. Okay, so there is no questions of doing it in home directory. So why I'm telling you all that? Because you have to make the strategy based on where you want your SFTP server. Okay, so you want your SFTP server in this particular AlmaLinux server under root file structure, okay, which is basically that /. Okay, because, and my boss says that's good enough. Okay, so I can live with 37 gigabyte. So now I'm passed through with my boss, and he just said that you go ahead and establish a SFTP server for me into your root file structure. So this is the strategy. Every server will have a different work hard drive spaces. Some will have external hard drives attached to the system, so you can do that as well. I will probably gonna cover another lectures where I can show you how to do that. So the reason is basically you got to be very, very careful of declarations of the path. So if you do not have a basic Linux skills how the path work and the permission work, then you will not be able to do SFTP server, because it is not difficult, can be cumbersome. Okay, so you're gonna have to have an understanding about the permission issue. You also have to understand about the path declarations. How are you gonna create those paths, and where is gonna be your uploads, downloads directory, so that people can go in there and actually downloads those files from this particular directory, what we call folder in Windows, and also can upload their files into that particular directory. And not just that, but also you need to be secured it, so that when they got into it, some people are actually good at, like me, myself, for example, not to take my own horn, and sysadmin, and you don't want those people to jump right in, for example, from Windows PowerShell, and go into your machine and try to figure out where exactly your root machines is, basically all the root files, as I showed you before, ls-l, and if they can go in there, they can destroy your machine. Okay, so you don't want negative people going to your machine either. So you're gonna have to do what we call jailgating. Okay, so basically we're gonna jailgate it so that no one can actually access any of these systems. So this comes into SFTP, and if you do not have the understanding of file manager or file systems and the file structure in a Linux environment, then you will struggle. And that comes with a lot of practices and a lot of experience. It's not hard, but it just takes a lot of time to understand the conceptions behind it. So this lecture is going to cover all that. So you can see that I'm talking a lot, because it's more of talking than coding this time. Okay, because SFTP is more of talking. You have to understand the conceptions behind it. Otherwise, you're going to stuck, and it's going to cause a lot of issues, and you're not be able to be successful doing SFTP server. And that's why I said it is like an advanced skill set. Okay, it's not even semi-advanced. Okay, so it is an advanced skill set. So we're going to go ahead, especially if you're doing it in Red Hat families. Now, the first thing I'm going to do from here, as you can see, that we're going to do it in a root environment. So I'm going to clear this screen to give you some breathing spaces. The first thing you need to do is basically, we have checked it out. SSH is OpenSSH is already installed. It is running, and we're all good to go. So the first thing I'm going to do is basically I'm going to create a group. Okay, and what we call it, that group. In that group, any user that we can have permission that user to go use that particular group, then they can actually access those SFTP server. As simple as that. Just keep it simple. So we're gonna have a group. So if you have a group, let's say a soccer group, so you can have 10 members or 11 members of people, right, into that group. Okay, so that's why the group is important. It's like a container thing. That's where people can join. So under group you'll have user, so you can have multiple users, so you can have one user, but in our case one user is just fine. The username can be one username. Okay, so these two conceptions is important, group and user. So let's just create the group. So the command is very easy, group add. Okay, so you can doing it group add. Okay, just make sure before you do anything where you are. So do pwd and find out where you are. So you're in the root directory. So you start from root directory for everything. Okay, so from here do group add, and then in my cases I'm gonna call that SFTP group. Okay, because secret file transmission protocol, SFTP. And when you press that and hit enter, the group will be created. Okay, so that's done. So when you get your command prompt back, that means group has been created. Now we're gonna create a user, and we're gonna create the user and gonna give it a command. And this command, don't get intimidated by that command. And it's very simple actually, user add, and then we're gonna do what we call -g. So we want that to be group in there. So we're gonna doing it in one fell swoop. So the SFTP is our group, so we are adding that user into the SFTP group. And then -s, this is basically an option for sbin. Okay, so this is basically important because where system binary files are, we don't want those people I mentioned to you before, they cannot actually log into a system. So that's why this particular directory has that file system structure. That's where we want to make sure that it doesn't go, people cannot actually access your system. So system binary no login. Okay, and then we're gonna choose a username. This is the username you're gonna choose. In my cases, I'm gonna choose a username called Bushmaster. Okay, so you can choose any name. You can choose Blue Bonnet, you can choose Blue Flower, whatever you like. Okay, so in my case, this is gonna be Bushmaster. So user add is the command, -g is an option, SFTP is the user group. Okay, the group where I wanna put that Bushmaster into that group, SFTP. And sbin is basically system binary file where no login. That basically means people cannot actually access that from outside of a remote, outside of your local area network. So basically means they can log into particular jailgetting systems. Okay, so we are doing that as well. So from here, hit enter, and that's done. So when you get your command prompt back, this is the first thing you do. Now we can establish a password, and that's really, really important. The password is going to be in our case, it's going to be, when you create a password, the password gets encrypted anyhow, so you don't have to worry too much. But I'm going to disclose that password to you because I'm giving this lecture for your help. Okay, so you choose a very strong password, so it's important. So you pass wd, and then in our case, this is going to be the Bushmaster because our username is Bushmaster. Okay, and this is important because the password you're going to choose has to be something that you need to record it as well, so you don't forget that. Okay, so when you do that, it's gonna ask you the password. Okay, new password. Okay, so the new password is gonna be bushycat 69 percentile sign. Okay, so bushy, all small capital, bushycat 69 percentile. Okay, and then you see the number has not been written in here. That's another beauty of Linux. It's so secure. And hit enter. I'm gonna retype the password again. Bushycat 69 percentile. Hit enter. So if you make a mistake, so when it says sorry, password do not match, what it means is basically made a typing error. So just make sure that you write it slowly and quickly at the same time. Pass wd Bushmaster, and you're gonna ask it the password. Bushycat 69 percentile. Hit enter. Bushycat 69 percentile. Hit enter. We should be okay. So it says password or authentication tokens updated successfully. So it's Bushycat 69 percentile. So once we get that out of the way, this is basically your first steps of your or first 2 steps of your SFTP establishment. Now things are gonna get a little bit complicated. So just bear with me. So what we're going to do here is we're gonna create. So we know we have to create a directory structure for our SFTP. So let's just do that. mkdir, so that make directory, and -p is an option because it needs password protection, so that's why we are doing that. And root, as I said to you, it's gonna be on the root. Okay, the path is the root. Start from the root, and then we're gonna call it, the first directory we're gonna call it is SFTP goon. Okay, SFTP and then goon. Okay, so that's the first directory, and under that first directory we're gonna we're going to create another directory, and that directory, that's important, that directory name has to be the same name of your username. Okay, and I will tell you little, I will explain you why little later. Okay, so we're gonna call it Bushmaster because our username is Bushmaster. Okay, and then inside there, this is the directory. So the jail getting is basically when somebody is log into SFTP, you give them the credentials to log in there. Basically, you give them the password, you give them the username, and when they log in, they're gonna log in and they're gonna go in there. Okay, and that is called jail getting, and we're gonna do that jail getting in changing the syshd configuration file of OpenSSH. Okay, that's why things get a little complicated, as I mentioned to you before. So for the first step, you remember your path, how you're declaring the path, because we're doing it in the root. That's why, and we're creating a first directory called SFTP-goon, and then inside of that directory, we're creating a directory, and I given that directory name Bushmaster for a reason that I will explain a little later. And then inside of that Bushmaster directory, we create a directory, and that directory we'll call it upload downloads. Okay, you can name it whatever you want to call it, but it's easy for me to remember, so people can upload it, people can download it, I can upload it, I can download it. Do you understand? So that's why I give it upload downloads. And naming character is also important. Don't put any space bar, don't put anything else. You can do a snake style case, but in these cases I'm gonna just keep it with camel case. Okay, so basically all started with small capital, and then when you have a new word, the first character would be D, so that like a camel hump, we call it camel case. Okay, but you can do a snake case like you say upload underscore download, but in these cases this is more appropriate. Okay, so we do that and then hit enter, and that's advantage. When you get your command prompt back, that has been created nicely. So now things gonna get a little bit more complicated. Let me just drink my beer a little bit before I go further. Now we're gonna change the SSHD configuration file. And bear in mind, before we change anything, you just got to understand one or two things in here. That's what we have done here is SFTP-goon, okay, and then the Bushmaster, okay. In here, so when people log in, we want people to reverse back to Bushmaster. That is our root in that particular. So we need to change the ch root path, and that's why you're going to sysconfig SSHD sysconfig. So where that file is, let's take a look. cd etc, do that first, okay, and then ssh, do that ssh directory, and then we do ls-l, and you see there's a file called this. If there's a dash sign to start with, then this is a file. If D means directory, all dash means in Linux is file. Okay, so this is the file sshd underscore. You see, this is called a snake case. Okay, so in the next, everything is in a snake case. Can you see? There's no space bar. Okay, so sshd underscore config. This is the file that we need to open. And how are you gonna open that file? You're gonna do nano, which is basically a text editor, which is one of my favorite. You can utilize Vim, which is very archaic because people don't use it now. A lot of people will say, oh yeah, we're using Vim. Why? You know, there's no need to, because it's kind of intimidating. Okay, there's no need to use Vim anymore. You know, a lot of people say, oh yeah, we are Linux, you know, we are Linux and Unix, we're using Vim. There's no need for it. Nano is a lot more easier. Okay, so use nano, and then sshd underscore config. So if you just type con and then press tab button right in your click, and it will come up like that, and hit enter. Okay, so now you'll have a nano text editor open, and this is your test plan. If you're a sysadmin, you'll be spending a lot of time changing this kind of configuration file, so you better get used to it. So we are looking at the very bottom end of this particular file where we need to make certain changes, and the changes we're gonna make in here. Sorry, these you see these pound signs in here. Okay, that means they are commented out, so that means they are not activated. So first thing we need to do, we need to deactivate this bit. Okay, we don't need that one, so you're gonna comment it out by pressing pound sign right on top. Okay, the prefixing it with a pound sign means this is deactivated. This is the first thing you need to do. And remember what we have done in here before. So hit enter, we're gonna even keep it all commented out, that basically they're not activated. And then remember we mentioned about going into this particular file manager. where we have these particular things. Okay, so you can see this is something that I copied it. Okay, so that I don't have to write all that. So I'm going to copy all that thing. So we have our own subsystem SFTP, internal SFTP, and here look at that one. This is the bit that we really need to look at and change it. Okay, so we're gonna copy them. Before we copy it, you can look at the chroot directory. Okay, SFTP goon. Okay, and then what it is doing is percentile u. So that basically means it reverts back to the Bushmaster directory that we have created. Okay. So we're going to copy that. Okay, so what this is trying to understand what we're trying to do here. That's SFTP goon. Okay, and then %ui means basically reverse back to the Bushmaster directory. That's why we created. %u means user. Okay, so this is something that you need to understand in SFTP. It's really important conceptions in here. So when we log in, it goes back to the Bushmaster as a root directory. Okay, that's why you had to create that Bushmaster directory. Okay, so Control C. Okay, and then go back to your nano in here, and then don't do Control V here. Just gently right click it and paste it. Okay, so subsystem now changes, but these ones we're not gonna comment it out by putting out a prefix as a pound sign, because this is what we want. Okay, and what we're doing here is basically we have reversing it back to the Bushmaster. So people log in, you'll see the differences later on, and then Control X and then Shift Y to save that file and hit enter. So once you do that, okay, so we got still a lot of things to do. We're gonna go right ahead into the few more steps to finish the SFTP. We need to give a permissions of those files. Okay, and that's really important. So we have created SFTP goon. As you remember, the directory we created SFTP goon. Okay, and we changed it. So let's just take a look into again that its changes was perfectly done. So go page down, and you will see your SFTP goon. You have to match these names. So if you make mistakes, you're totally screwed up. So our directory was SFTP goon and then /Bushmaster. Okay, and then we have a uploads downloads. So what we want, chroot basically means when you log into your SFTP server, it will land into the Bushmaster directory. Okay, that's why it's reversing back to the Bushmaster directory. Okay, but we need to have some certain permission resolved at this point as well. Okay, so that people who have a username, okay, and they can actually access that uploads downloads directory. Okay, but they cannot actually do anything more than that. Okay, so we're gonna have to create if you have a root permission, that is basically means you are the one who have the access of the machine and the server, then you would be able to configure everything in SFTP, but other people cannot do that. Okay, so we're gonna have to create the permission. That's where things get a little complicated. So anyway, so come out from here. So the first thing I'm gonna permission ownership. So we're gonna do chown, that basically means permissions, -r to start off with, and then we want root. Okay, so this is basically the root permission. For user is the root, SFTP is the group. Okay, so root is the user, SFTP is the group, and we're doing it root, and we call it SFTP goon. Did you remember that directory we created? So that directory, only the people who has the root permission of the server, they can access it. So they are the one who are going to control that, and other people cannot go anywhere. So if you have given them the username, they cannot go reverse back. They cannot do anything. They're kind of jail gated. Okay, so that's why it's really important to understand that conception. Hit enter, and that's the first thing. And then we're going to give it 755. That basically means you have the permission to do whatever you want. If you put out a file in there, you have the permission as a root to do things, change the file, amend the file, edit the file, remove the file, etc., etc. And that is called 755. So we're going to do chmod 755, okay, in our cases, and then /SFTP good, okay, and hit enter. So this is the first thing is the permission, ownership, and the second thing is permission. Okay, the ownership is basically root, and the group is SFTP, and then we have given the permission of 755, which is basically a number that translates into what you can do if you put out file in there. Okay, it's very strong permission, because you would not be able to do something like change the file to something like a application file or anything like that. Okay, so hit enter, and now remember that push master directory. Okay, so that directory will also have permission. Okay, so we do chmod and we do 755 for that as well. So SFTP goon /bushmaster. Okay, and give it a 755. That's fine. Okay, and hit enter. And the last bit is chmod 777, and this is basically you can upload the file there as well. Okay, so that's why it changes to 777 now. Okay, and that's where people can actually, outside of the people who you given them the username and the password, but they don't have the root password though, okay, of the server, because they cannot do much. Okay, so they can only go at that particular directory, SFTP goon and /bushmaster. You can see the SFTP is kind of advanced skill set, because without knowing all this, you cannot just copy all this to different machine and implement it, because every machine will have a different server. For example, as I said, as an example, my boss told me that you're gonna have to do it in this particular root directory, but in your cases, if you go into another machine, that machine probably don't need in root directory. He is asking you to do it in external machine. So you're gonna get screwed up in external server, external storage server. You're gonna get screwed up, because you do not know how these things actually plays into the comes into the picture, especially the path. Okay, so the Bushmaster, and then we have uploads, downloads. Okay, so this is basically a directory where you can put the file in there, and people can actually access this one. We're gonna test it all anyhow. Hit enter. And we're all done. So the last bit of SFTP server is established, but we have to implement it as in like enable the SSHD. So do that systemctl enable, which is basically enabled anyhow as far as, but nothing wrong doing it again. Systemctl enable SSHD. Hit enter, and that's done. And the systemctl restart SSHD. Do that. And then do systemctl status SSHD and hit enter, and it is running. So hopefully I have done everything right. And so now what we're going to do is basically, hopefully, I'm still confused, because that always spook me up, especially the chroot path. Okay, so hopefully I've done it all right. Okay, so we're gonna check it, and you're gonna check it by sitting, like I said, you're gonna cut your tree by sitting on the tree. You're gonna fall. So we're gonna have to test it from a different server. So as I said, I'm gonna do it in a FreeBSD. Let's just celebrate a little bit with a drink. Right. Okay. So I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do. So I'm just gonna leave it here, and I'm gonna come out from this. I'm gonna go to a FreeBSD, which is very strong, popular server. Okay. So we are actually going to the FreeBSD server right now. Okay, so this is going to be interesting bit. Okay, so from here, this is our FreeBSD. So here, if I type pwd, you see it has totally different path, and also if you do hostname -i, it gonna tells you. Oh, sorry, it doesn't have, because that is not Linux, because you have to type netstat -rm. Then it will tell you information about your the server. It has different IP address 175. So we're gonna clear this screen from here. Okay, so we're gonna do, if I type neofetch in here, fast fetch may be better. fast fetch, it will tell you that this is a FreeBSD server. Okay, this is a very powerful server for Netflix is running in FreeBSD server, which is operating system, so Unix, more like Unix Tune operating system. Okay, so from here we're gonna test it that our AlmaLinux, which is Red Hat family server, where we have established SFTP. So we're gonna log into SFTP server from here. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so clear the screen and then do SFTP. Okay, and we know our AlmaLinux, you know, we've been to AlmaLinux before, and we know our AlmaLinux is what do you call it, IP address, right? Okay, so it was 192.168.1.171, I believe. So let's just go into AlmaLinux again. Let's take a look in here. Okay, so let's just so you're running two server, you're running, this is what you're going to be doing if you're a sysadmin. So from here, this is AlmaLinux, so that's where we establish our SFTP. So if you do hostname -i, it tells you you are 171, but also you're gonna have to come out as root from here. And if you do who am I, this is also important, and your dude. So these two information you need, dude and 192.168.1.171 to log in as SSH. Okay, so we're gonna do SFTP in our cases, so we don't need the dude because we have SFTP username called Bushmaster. Did you remember that? So we're gonna do that. So we're gonna go to FreeBSD again. Sorry, FreeBSD. Right, so we're in FreeBSD now. Okay, so from here SFTP, and then our username is Bushmaster because that's what we created. Okay, so let's just do something else before we do anything. Let's just do something else before we do anything from here. Sorry. Okay, we go back to your AlmaLinux. Okay, we can try from AlmaLinux first. Okay, so we go back to AlmaLinux. Okay, and then we're gonna, because what we do need to do before we do anything is basically we're gonna put some file in there, because that's the whole purpose of doing that. Okay, so from here, so I'm gonna clear this screen, and as you can see, right, okay, let me clear this screen and do pwd from here, and then you are here. Okay, so do ls-l, and we have this video file, remember. So before you go to SFTP, you make sure you go into the directory where those files are if you're doing it in a command line. Okay, but if you can utilize third-party software like FileZilla, or in Windows you have WinSCP, you can also do FileZilla in Windows as well. But if you're doing it in a command line, you have to go into that particular, you cannot just drag and drop files in command line. So there's a command I'm going to issue called put. Okay, so that basically means the files that you have that need to be going to SFTP server. But in order to do that, you have to establish where the files are, and that the only way you can do it is basically know where you're going. Okay, so we're gonna go to video directory, and that's where our files are before we actually log in to SFTP server from the same machine. Okay, so do that, and then if you do ls-l, we have this particular 3 videos. Okay, so these 3 videos, we want to put it into SFTP server. That's the whole plan of doing it. Okay, so we're gonna do that now. Okay, so we're gonna put these 3 files into our SFTP server. Okay, so that's the whole objective, and then we're gonna go to FreeBSD and download those files, these 3 files. Okay, so let's do that. So we're gonna do SFTP. Let's see whether our SFTP is working. Plug in your username Bushmaster, and the username is Bushmaster, and the IP address is 192.168.1.171. Okay, and hit enter, and it's gonna ask you the first time you're doing it, because it is SSH, it is that alphanumeric AES-250 algorithm. Okay, so it converted to that, and that's why it's asking you you're sure about that. Say yes and hit enter, and now you're gonna put out the password that you created, and it's bushycat69 %, and hit enter, and now you're in SFTP server. Okay, now you're in SFTP server. If you do pwd, and it will tell you you are jailgated. Okay, so your remote working directory is root. Why? Because your ch root was, did you remember, it jailgated to Bushmaster. You cannot go to anywhere from here. So if you do cd root, it will throw out an error message and you cannot go anywhere. ls minus l, you cannot go to anywhere else. Do you understand? So, or jailgated ch root. That's why that, did you remember that we have done under ch root, we changed the path to SFTP goon and then /%u. So it reverts back to username, that is Bushmaster. And why? Because you have a directory created. You know that directory is this directory. Okay, and under that directory you have a directory called uploads and downloads. So you keep reversing back to your Bushmaster. You understand that conception? Keep that head very clear in that conception, because that conception has a huge implementational significance if you want to have to apply this to different storage devices, external storage devices. Okay, so that way you change the media. For example, you are actually mounting it into media, and then let's say gooncat as like another directory. So that is mounted, and you want that particular storage devices to be ch rooted, not your system. Okay, so that's why it has significance and implementation. So if you have to have the clear conceptions, I will try to make another video of that so that people can understand that. But because in this AlmaLinux I don't have any storage devices attached to it, I cannot show you that. That's why I'm creating it in a root. Okay, so but it's still good enough because you still have 37 gig to play with. Okay, so from here you cannot just type df-h and it will throw you a message here. Okay, and oh, okay, it's working, and it's beautiful. It's working because it actually gives you nothing more than that, though. Do you understand? It gives you only 45 gig. It tells you that you've got 36 gigabyte root because you created that under root SFTP goon, and that's what it is showing it. But if you do something like any command like df-h, for example, lsblk, I don't think lsblk will take it. It may take it invalid command because you cannot do that in SFTP. Okay, so you're jailgated. So just try to understand that conception very clear. You know, so people who are hacker, if you didn't do ch root with /SFTP goon and then %u, that basically reversing back to the Bushmaster, then your machine will be open. That means people can go into the whole system files that I showed you and can remove your system. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but some people might take advantages of that and they can destroy your machine. The people who knows it. But often people don't know this. People utilize file manager. Even after that, it's risky. That's why you jailgated it. Okay, so that no one can actually get out from that particular. Why we calling jailgating? Because you cannot go out to do anything else outside of your SFTP. And why we have done that? By changing the ch root path. And that's really, really important. Because if you don't do that right way, then SFTP will not work. That's why I'm calling it SFTP, the advanced Linux skill set. And the permission is critically important. How you did the permission. Okay, so from here, I'm going to do ls-l again. And then even if you do clear screen, I don't think clear screen will do the job, say invalid command, because this is under jailgated. You cannot have those particular command that you run in Linux. Okay, so we're going to do cd uploads. With that, I've given a permission to it, so we're going to go in there. Okay, so now we are in the uploads download directory. If you do pwd, it's going to tell you remote working directory is uploads downloads. Okay, so now in there, I'm going to put these files, and that's very simple. Why? Because I've already picked up, before I've been to SFTP, I've already picked up the video directory, so I'm actually outside of my jailgate. I'm already in the video directory. So the command I'm going to issue is put, okay, *.mpp4. What it means is basically all the mpp4 in that video directory going to be put into this uploads down. Hit enter, and then you see all the files has been taken care of and is gone into your uploads downloads directory. Very simple and very fast as well. Okay, so now if you do ls-l, you will see these three files. Okay, this has been copied, so that's all good. So we are running it in a local, we're running it from the same machine, and now I'm going to exit from here. Okay, so that's cool. So because it happened in there, so we put it in there, the file will be there because they just been copied, so you can always bring it back down there. Okay, so that's cool. So now we're going to escape from here, and we're going to go to FreeBSD. What is our intention of FreeBSD? Don't do it in FreeBSD. Forget about FreeBSD, because FreeBSD is running in a headless server, so it doesn't have a GUI interface, so we cannot test those files it's actually running. So I'm going to do it in Debian 13, and then well, do it in FreeBSD anyhow. Okay, do it in FreeBSD anyhow, and then we do something more interesting. So we bring the FreeBSD from FreeBSD to Debian 30 in this machine, and then we'll run it. Okay, do it. Let's do it. You learn a lot better that way. Okay, let me just take a look into how this video. Let me just celebrate as well with a little bit of beer. So that's not too bad. The video is only 49 minutes. So I'm gonna finish that video in an hour. So this is an hour-long video. That's pretty cool. So we're gonna go back to our FreeBSD. Okay, and then we're gonna go into our. Let me just enhance this screen. Let me just drink a little bit of beer. Okay, so now we are in the FreeBSD. So now from FreeBSD, we're gonna go to the SFTP server of our AlmaLinux. Okay, so we do SFTP, and then username is Bushmaster at 192.168.1.171, right? Okay, and hit enter. And again, fingerprint, because it's a different machine, different server. Yes, and I'm gonna ask you the password is bushycat69%. Hit enter, and now it should be in SFTP. Now you're in the SFTP. If you do PWD, you're in the remote. You cannot gel gauge it, so you cannot go outside. So you do ls-l. You can only go to the upload directory, and we're gonna go there. CD uploads, downloads. Hit enter. ls-l. And now in here, okay, so I'm sorry, I want to go back again, okay, because I don't want to download this. We're not going to download this particular directory before we do anything. So just exit from here and then clear the screen, do PWD again, and then we are in a home leopard home leopard. So there's nothing there. If you do ls-l, you see there's nothing there. So if you do cd root, that makes more sense. Okay, so you are in the root now. Okay, so now do ls-l, you see that BSD system is very different than Linux system. So you can see you have a home directory there. Okay, so we're gonna do cd home and do ls-l, and it will come up with two username that I've created for that. But there is no download directory or anything like that you see in Linux systems. Okay, so BSD is very different. Utterly different, I would say, from Linux. The commands work, but because they all originated from Unix systems, so you have Unix and then BSD and then you have Linux. Okay, so basically all the commands that are written in Unix-based systems, okay, came to BSD, and BSD actually all the commands are actually OpenSSH developed in BSD. So the BSD commands have been translated into Linux systems, and most of the commands pretty much work the same way. Okay, so now we're gonna do cd leopard. Okay. And then in here, we don't have any particular directories. Okay, so if you do ls-l, you see there's no directory. So let's just create a directory. Okay, so mkdir, I'm gonna call that black girls. Okay, black _girls. Okay, black girls, because those videos are about black girls. Okay, so we get black girls and hit enter and do ls-l. And you have a directory called black girls. So do cd black girls. So we are going in there. Now tell me what I have taught you before. Now we have already chosen the directory where we are. And now we SFTP, and then we're going to issue a command to download those, and that is basically put. Okay, the command is called put. That command will put. Where is going to put it? Put it in the black girls directory. And why I have chosen the directory name black girls? Because those videos are black girls oriented. Okay, so you have to understand the chronology and logic while you work in a system admin. I'm giving a very fair, simple example here, but it gets very complicated when you have like millions of files to deal with. Okay, so from here, so we're gonna do SFTP. Okay, and then we know the username, which is Bushmaster at 192. Plug in this number 168.1.171. That's AlmaLinux. Okay, and hit enter. I'm going to ask you the password, bushycat. Sorry, I'm going to have to do that again. bushycat69%. Hit enter, and you are in SFTP, right? And do cd uploads. So you're going in that directory, ls-l, and now you have all these three files. What we want these files to be going to that particular black girls directory, because we have already chosen it. And the command is very simple, put asterisk, that's the regular expression, or wildcard in Windows, put asterisk, all the MP4 files, put it. Where are you going to put it? In the black girls directory. Hit enter. put command did not work. That's interesting. Sorry, my fault. No such file. Is get. I think alcohol is acting up. Is get. Put is basically we put it. We did put before because we had to put it there. So it has to be get. Let me just drink a little bit of drink, man. Get, okay, asterisk dot mpp4 and then hit enter. And now it's all uploading. Can you see all those files gone? And that's cool. So what we're gonna do now from here is we're gonna exit, okay, and then if you do clear the screen and do ls-l, what are you gonna see? These files. But in FreeBSD is a shell server, so I don't have GUI interfaces or any video package software to run these files. So what I plan to do is basically I'm gonna move these files from here to my Debian machine. So how are we gonna do that? Okay, it's very simple. Okay, we're gonna do a GUI interfaces in our Debian. The machine I'm recording all these things is called Debian 13 machine, and we're gonna move all this file from there to my Debian 13 machine, and then we play it in Debian 13 machine. How is that? Okay, the extra bonus lecture for you. So from here, if I do host who am I, it's gonna tell me I'm leopard and do host name -i, and I need this two piece of information. Sorry, netstat. I forgot that this is not a Linux. Netstat -rn. Okay, so you see the command is very different in this one, and we have this particular IP address 192.168.175. Okay, so these two pieces of information is all I need. So now I'm gonna minimize the screen from here, and this is my main machine where I'm recording everything. You see I'm recording everything in here. The recording is gone nearly 1 hour, and this particular machine is Debian 13 machine. So let's jump right in, go to the name of file manager, okay, and then connect to the machine and the GUI interfaces. So connect to server, and then plug in that number 192.168.1.175. This is very familiar to you because this is very much like a Windows like things. Okay, so the folder we want to go is slash home, as far as I remember. Was it slash home? Yes, and then slash leopard. Okay, that's where we're gonna go, and username is gonna be leopard, and the password of that particular machine, which I am not going to tell you, and then connect. Okay, so that will connect that machine. So now we are in that particular machine, and you can see the black girls is already there. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go leopard black girls, and all these 3 videos you can play from there if you want to. If you want to copy that file, you can move that file, whatever you're gonna do. I'm actually gonna move these files, so I'm gonna select all, and then I'm gonna actually cut all that file. Okay, and then I'm going to our home directory. I'm gonna come into my video directory right here, and no, not on videos. I'm gonna put it in downloads directory actually, and paste it right there. So these files been moved now, and how you gonna check that this file is actually been moved? And very simple. If you go back to your Proxmox in here, and I'm gonna go to my actually running in 3 server at the same time, as you can see. So you learn a lot from here. So clear the screen and do ls-l, and there would be no file. Okay, so we're gonna do cd dot, and then I'm gonna do ls-l, and the black girls I'm gonna remove the directory, so it has service purposes. rf-rf black girls ls-l, and then the directory is gone, and that's what we wanted. And now I'm gonna do su-l, and then I'm gonna put out the root password, which I kind of forgot it. No, I haven't forgotten it. Here we go, and I'm in the root now. So from here I'm gonna do pkg update and see whether there is an update available for me. Nothing there. That's all cool. And now from here I'm gonna power off this machine. So do power off because it has service purpose. I don't need that machine. So this machine is service purposes. My boss is happy because I've established a SFTP server with no issue. I've tested everything from local area network, bear in mind, in local area network, in FreeBSD, and also in Debian 13, transferring those files from there. AlmaLinux can run, and that's not a problem. I'm going to conclude this lecture shortly. So last few things that I need to do is basically I got these 3 videos, so I'm going to run these videos for you so that you can actually take a look. So the first video is Bonnie Parker. She's a black girl, and let's see what she's doing. So hit enter, click it, and that celebrate a little bit of a beer, I believe. She's playing in SM player, so she's just a nice girl with a nice underwear on. Okay, let's just play it again. Okay, so this kind of videos, if you're sharing with your friends, you don't want to share with people who unwanted people. Okay, so that's a nice quick video. Let's play the next one. So next one is this one. So this girl is a black girl as well, wearing a very colorful underwear actually. And I like her house because her house got a lot of green plants out there, like just like my house. This is a 1 minute and 26. So this is kind of video that you want to share with your friends, because I find black girls quite interesting. Kind of interesting because they're kind of rough, in some degree, but they're sexually very open-minded. That is something that most men probably would like in women. That's why I kind of like them girls, and they're wearing a proper underpants. That's one of the things that really turn me on, because they don't wear skimpy, thongy underpants like Milky Bar girls. Okay, so that's why I kind of like these girls. They're wearing proper underwear. So I kind of like this video. Okay, let's just finish this video and drink my beer. So I'm quite happy with what I've done in SFTP. I was really struggling with SFTP in the past. So I kind of mastered it pretty well now. Yeah, I switched up the sound because I'm talking to you, but it has actually dance tune as well, so that she's dancing with the underwear, really colorful underpants, and they wear proper underpants. They don't wear thong underpants, and that's really big turn on. And they have a big ass, wonderful ass, actually, if you ask me. So let's take a look at the last one, and it's the same girl, I believe. Yeah, and she is actually watering her plant. Very nice, wonderfully skin tone, proper underpants, nice big fat ass, and she's equivocal, sexually open-minded, kind of girls you want as your, as your mistress, maybe, if not girlfriend or wife. Excellent. So we are successful in all directions. My boss is happy. Let's jump back into our AlmaLinux before I finish this lecture. So we are in AlmaLinux. It's absolutely brilliant, and it has service purposes, and I'm quite happy with everything that has gone with AlmaLinux. So clear the screen from here. Okay, and SFTP server is well successfully done. Okay, and then under videos, let's just take a look what we have. ls-l. We got these 3 videos under videos, so we don't want these videos anymore. So I'm going to do what we call rm-rf, okay, asterisk dot asterisk. Okay, so this is basically remove all the file from here, and then do ls-l. The file is gone. Okay, so that's cool. And then cd, and then do pwd. You are in home dude. Okay, and that's cool. And so from here, I don't need AlmaLinux running at this point because SFTP server is running. We can leave SFTP running. That's cool. So I'm gonna conclude this lecture. Okay, so this is AlmaLinux for you. Okay, so I'm running a lot of stuffs in here. So this file, I don't need this file anymore. So I'm gonna close this file, and also I'm gonna go back to your file manager right here, and then if I go to your home directory in file managers, under downloads we have this particular file. I'm gonna get rid of this file as well, do a little bit of housekeeping as well, otherwise your boss is gonna be angry because you don't want machine running. So from here I'm gonna do wastebasket, and then you can actually remove it from here as well. Delete from wastebasket. Okay, I don't need that file. I was just using it for copying that file to save some time, but the lecture is on 1 hour anyway, so there's nothing there. Okay, that's cool. And then there's nothing there in the video directory as well. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed this lecture actually, and I'm gonna close the command line as well. I can actually close the command line from here, exit, and the command line is closed, and this one we can close this one as well. Okay, so here we go. So your AlmaLinux, beautiful Red Hat systems. And so the summary of this lecture is we established a SFTP server in AlmaLinux. We tested it both in FreeBSD and also from Debian 13 machine, and it worked perfectly fine, and it actually met our requirements. Our requirements was we have to do it under 35 gigs or 39 gigs according to my manager's instructions, and we did it in a root. And as I said to you, the jail gating is critically important part, because you don't want people accessing outside of your jail gate, so that they can actually access your server and actually ruin your server if you're not very careful. So having said all that, we have done all that in Proxmox, thanks to Proxmox, thanks to AlmaLinux, thanks to all the Unix and Linux communities, thanks to all the folks in the IRC, Libera channels, especially my friends from FreeBSD and Midnight BSD server. And I also want to thank you to my friend Jill, who helped me all the time with all these kind of critical little issues that I sometimes struggle with. And I also want to thank my good friend Farouk, who actually helped me financing a lot of things in different phases of my life. And I just want to conclude this lecture. This is 1 hour 5 minutes lecture, and this is from Red Hatter, system administrator, software developer, Java full stack web application developer from San Diego, California. Thank you very much. Bye now.